I played a lot of games growing up, but it's hard to say anything was as impactful as The Elder Scrolls IV: Oblivion. It was the first big open-world RPG game I ever played. It was the first Bethesda game I ever played, and even though I've played a lot more Fallout than Elder Scrolls since then, I don't know, man, Oblivion just holds a special place in my heart. Now, this is where I'd usually smash cut to gameplay of me playing this game live, but as you could already tell, things are a little different. I had some recording issues, and I'm about to fly out to LA for Summer Game Fest stuff, so I just don't have time to re-record it. Instead, we're gonna do a good old-fashioned commentary, maybe like a loose video essay on Oblivion, and I don't know, I've kind of been missing this kind of video, so let me know what you guys think. Ever since the Fallout show came out on Prime, I've really been going back to Bethesda's games. Now, obviously, I went back and played Fallout 3, Fallout New Vegas, Fallout 4, and Fallout 76 all on the channel. But like most games for me, I played a couple hours of those and then just put them down. You know, it's kind of experiences I had already played before, so I didn't really get the itch to play through the entire thing. But I did get that Bethesda itch, and it made me want to go back and play the Elder Scrolls even more than Fallout for some reason. And I think, again, it's because those are more fresh experiences for me that I haven't played completely through. So a few weeks ago, I recorded myself playing Morrowind for the very first time, and it was such a cool experience. The main takeaway for me was that these games are really similar. Like, there's a very clear through line between Morrowind, Oblivion, and Skyrim. Sometimes sequels take a different direction for the franchise. They make changes that don't really fall in line with the previous games. That's not the case with Bethesda games, and I didn't fully realize that on the Elder Scrolls side until I went back to play the older ones. So it wasn't surprising when I booted up Oblivion to find a game that was a little more updated than Morrowind, but a little more dated compared to Skyrim, but very much the same experience. After the title credits, my next dose of nostalgia was this character creator. This is such an iconic character creator. Simply because the vast majority of custom characters just look weird. I don't know how to make a normal looking character with this one. And of course, the memes surrounding this one are, again, legendary, iconic. I went with a very boring looking generic Imperial. Typically, I don't spend a lot of time in character creators. Playing through this intro section made me realize how similar every single BGS game starts. They all have the same intro. You're waking up, you are a prisoner. I actually think Fallout 3 might have the most unique intro in the fact that you're being born, literally. But yeah, one of the most striking things starting this game again is Patrick Stewart as Uriel Septim, just like confronting you and talking to you, and he has such like an interesting accent and lilt to the way that he talks. It really sort of sucks you into the world immediately. Just having that zoom in camera and him telling you like, no, you need to find my illegitimate son. Here's the Amulet of Kings. I have seen my own death. It's about to happen. It's really cool. It's still pretty effective, I think. Now, for most of these games, I'm always going to play a melee character. I just find the impact of swinging and hitting enemies to be more satisfying than slinging spells or shooting arrows. But I did want some spells this time around, because I've noticed in this game, if you're not using spells, you're kind of wasting the magicka resource if you're not even going to use it. So I went with Crusader, because you've got some interesting like restoration and destruction skills to play around with. And here's that legendary step out moment. I definitely remember this blowing my mind the first time I saw it, because you've got just like the vast openness of the world, which again was completely new to me in video games. You've got that score coming in too, so you're getting the music as well, which just like elevates everything in the Elder Scrolls. Like, I was shocked by how often the music is blasting in Morrowind, but I didn't hate it. But I think it is better in Oblivion and Skyrim because it's a little more subtle. So I started making my way to the objective on the compass, which is to go to Wayne Priory to find Joffrey and let him know about the Emperor. Along the way, I ran into some wolves and got accustomed to the combat, which again is just so similar to both Morrowind and then Skyrim after this game. I think Skyrim's combat, for how simple it is, it gets a little too much flack. I mean, I get it, it's very sort of manual and, you know, you're swinging something and hitting something, and that's just how it works. There's not a ton of fancy stuff going on. There's some footwork stuff that you can do, like move forward, do a, power attack, and then you unlock more as you level up these skills. But I think it's a product of its time, and to me, Oblivion still feels pretty good with this combat system. I came across a couple altars on my way to Wayne Priory, and These work just like they do in Skyrim, but to my surprise, when I played Morrowind for the first time, they're also in that game. You just give a little offering and you get a blessing back. At a certain point, I decided to venture off the beaten path because there wasn't a lot going on, and I was actually surprised by how the forests look in this game. I think you could criticize this game and say it's a little bit flat and the palette for the colors is a little pastel. Like there's not a lot of contrast in these colors, but the density was surprising to me. It felt a lot of the time like, wow, I am actually traveling through a forest here. They did a good job for this, you know, almost 2 decades ago. Eventually, I found the Priory and made my way to talk to Joffrey. Now, it is kind of funny going back to Oblivion because we've seen an iteration of how Bethesda does the dialogue system in terms of the camera view and whether the world is paused or not. Oblivion was the first of their games to do this, to give you fully voiced dialogue and give you the animation, but also give you this very tight, narrow window to look at them through. And it's probably just because this is the only way I've known it, but yeah, of course it works in Oblivion. I'm not so sure that it aged well enough as a system to work in something like Starfield. Of course, I accepted the assistance from Joffrey and decked myself out in a bunch of heavy armor because I've already got, you know, skill points in that, so it seemed like a good fit for me. And at this point, I set off down the road to Kvatch, but decided to take a detour through the forest and see what was down there. Of course, I didn't realize that, weirdly, I could have fast traveled to Kvatch immediately. Like any of these icons that you see, you can click on them and hit fast travel without ever having visited them, which is so strange to me for an open world game. But I'm really glad I didn't because I found Molag Bal's shrine and I got to talk to all of these weird people. And this sort of reminded me of the charm of Bethesda games, but also open world games in general. Just the experience of wandering, seeing something cool in the distance, and then finding weird people to talk to that are worshiping, you know, this Daedra. It's just, it's strange, but again, it brings you into the world. It's super weird. And it also lends to a spookiness that I think this game really has, which we'll talk about more when we get into the Oblivion Gate. Next, I wandered up to this little stable and tried to talk to these NPCs, but they really didn't have anything interesting to say. What they did have, however, are a lot of horses, so I decided to steal one. They immediately freaked out, started attacking me, so I hightailed it out of there. I was genuinely shocked how fast I could move on horseback. Like, you're really moving quickly for a game this old. And the next thing I found was this Shrine of Sanguine, again, with some more NPC weirdos that wanted me to join their cult. When I said no, you know, they were not pleased, so I decided to leave. I did a lot of walking before I actually came across any bandits or just enemies, and I think that's something that the Elder Scrolls does differently than Fallout. It feels like there's a little more space in between conflict. Like, it's a little more contemplative. It gives you more time to soak in the environment and just kind of vibe instead of throwing you into combat scenarios. But I did find these bandits, and it was probably my first taste of legitimate combat, like an actual challenge. On the road up to Kvatch, I found this little camp and started asking people like, yeah, where's Brother Martin? What's going on here? And they started to tell me like, hey, Kvatch is under attack. The Oblivion Gate is there. Very few people made it out. You need to go talk to this guy. I decided to ask someone else. Maybe they had different information, and realized that they were repeating the exact same lines. So it's like they just gave these voice actors one set of lines to read and probably did not expect the player to ask multiple people about Martin. Here's where the sky started to change, and it started to remind me of why this game was a little bit scary for me as a 12-year-old. I mean, look at that sky. It's just like molten lava. And coming off of playing Morrowind, I guess it's not that surprising because Morrowind is even more sort of high fantasy, kind of freaky with its environment. At this point, Savlian tells you Brother Martin is in the chapel, but you need to close the Oblivion Gate before you're able to get to him. And this feels like a real skill check point at the game. Like, this is very early on, obviously, because, you know, only the first couple hours of the game, but it's not easy. I mean, these scamps, they hit pretty hard, and they also do some things like they'll dance in between the range where they can throw fireballs at you and hit you in melee. I remember really struggling with these enemies. Now, here's where I think the horror sort of back rooms, I guess you could call it, vibe of Oblivion really thrives, is when you're actually in the Plains of Oblivion. Because it's literally hell, or, you know, it feels like the Elder Scrolls version of hell. It is just like lacks hope completely, and the contrast between what you're seeing in Tamriel versus this is just wild. You get literally thrown to the fire, and as you can tell, my health is so low. I thought I was gonna die here, but I decided to run out. Like, I could not win this first fight. I waited, and eventually, you know, my health came back and I won this fight. But again, look at my health, just barely. This place is so hostile that even the plants attack you, and then you've got these bouncing Betty mines, at least that's what I called them in my live recording, that just pop up and blow you up, and you have no chance if you trigger them. I finally made it to my objective, died a few times legitimately, and of course I'm just save scumming like crazy, but this tower I think is another reason why it was very difficult for me as a kid to get through this first part. It's just so dark, and each of the rooms presents you with a pretty interesting challenge. You've got multiple enemies that you need to juggle at the same time, and I can just imagine 12-year-old me being a combination of too scared to keep going on and also getting frustrated with the difficulty. Now that I'm almost 30, when I come across this situation, I experiment more with the gameplay, you know, different spells and such that might give me an edge, and I discovered that the scamps are pretty vulnerable to cold touch, and also shocking touch was pretty effective, but more effective against the Dremora. But yeah, like mixing in different attacks and spells and finding a weakness was not something I thought about when I was a kid. I made my way up the tower and then got to this vista, and yeah, I remember when I was recording just remarking on how horrific this is. I mean, I don't think I really visualized or conceptualized hell as a child, but I think this was as close as I could get. I mean, this really is effective. On the inside of this new tower, I found this sigil keeper and pretty much took care of him with the shocking touch, but unfortunately knocked his body all the way down. And when this happened, I was like screaming. I was like, yes, get absolutely wrecked. I was a little bit frustrated and just felt triumphant, and of course, learned that I needed to get the Sigil Keeper's key off of that body that I just knocked all the way down. Unfortunately, I made this next part very difficult for myself because I did not realize there's a lever on the wall, you could see it in the gameplay right now, that will lift this elevator, this platform back up to me, no problem. Instead, I hotkeyed a bunch of health potions, jumped all the way down, tried to heal myself, did so many different combinations of things, and eventually was able to do it, but of course I felt so dumb at the time when I realized, no, I could have made this a lot easier on myself. But that trial and error sort of experience is something I felt deeply in Morrowind, and I still felt a little bit when I went back to Oblivion, but as you get further into more modern games, you get it less, because it's less about trial and error. I think they assume that people are less patient and less willing to fail in order to figure out what to do next. So yeah, while it was frustrating at the time, I chalked it up to, yeah, that was just the experience, and I ended up appreciating it. I made my way to the very top and had a few more Darth Maul-looking Dremoras to take out, and I just want to highlight the art design once again, just like the fleshy, bloody-looking structures and everything about this area. It's so effective. Like, it really, really works. After I figured out which spells to use, the fights really weren't that difficult. I think the Sigil Keeper was probably supposed to be the toughest fight, but then I grabbed the Sigil Stone and the entire screen went white. And bam, I had closed my first Oblivion gate, and not gonna lie, it felt really good. On the inside, me and the boys from the Kvatch City Guard took care of the rest of the scamps, and these guys, I don't know, for some reason felt easier, either that or I was just more comfortable with the combat at this point, but this was a piece of cake. And on the inside, I finally found my boy, Brother Martin, aka Sean Bean, and when I learned this was Sean Bean's voice, it kind of blew my mind as a kid, and it still does, because I feel like games lately don't really use big celebrities to voice act their characters. It's more about finding like a really talented voice actor, which I totally respect because I think voice actors need to be respected more in general. But Sean Bean as Brother Martin absolutely kills it, and I will never forget this character simply for the fact that, yo, that's actually Sean Bean voicing him. At this point, I had to bring Brother Martin back to Wayne and Priory to talk to Joffrey, and here is the first time that I fast traveled, and also when I kind of discovered, oh my god, I can just fast travel anywhere on any of these icons on the map. That's still so weird to me. I was greeted upon fast traveling with this jump scare, this dark elf telling me that they needed help, that Wayne Priory was being attacked by the Mythic Dawn, and I felt, again, so much more confident with this fight after having fought what felt like more dangerous enemies within the Plains of Oblivion, but I know they're pretty similar. But look at Brother Martin. He just absolutely tore apart these guys in combat. I was shocked. We found Joffrey in the chapel, and again, had to take down more Mythic Dawn agents, but this time I had the Akaviri katana, and gosh, this thing feels so good, and just the model is so awesome. I remember just really desperately wanting to roleplay as a member of the Blades in this game, and was really happy when I got to. Our next step was to bring Brother Martin with Joffrey to the Cloud Ruler Temple so we can kind of get him safe and then figure out how to get back the Amulet of Kings. And everything about just like the ceremony of this is so fresh in my mind. Listening to Joffrey sort of rally his blades and them saying, "Hail Dragonborn, hail Martin Septim, hail!" And then listening to Sean Bean give his little monologue about how he doesn't know how to be emperor, but he's gonna really try. I don't know. Just, it brought me back. It felt really nice and nostalgic and warm and fuzzy. And then afterwards, being asked to join the Blades, and Joffrey, you know, welcomes you into their ranks. And he gives you a katana. It just feels good, man. I don't know. At this point, I had decided I was going to go ahead and wrap up my recording, but Joffrey sent me to the Imperial City, and I wanted to walk around because the Imperial City is another big reason, a big point of nostalgia for me with Oblivion. And I'm really glad I did because, again, the scale of this thing at the time, I think it's definitely smaller than I remember it being, but at the time, this felt like a real living, breathing city to me. And I still think it does a pretty decent job of giving off that effect when in fact it's not actually that big. So this is the point where I wrapped up the video, and my overall thoughts were, yeah, this feels like just, you know, stepping back into a world that I spent a lot of time in as a kid, and also one that captured my imagination and sort of showed me the kind of game that I think I'm still looking for, if that makes sense, you know? Just that open-ended, you can do anything, be anything kind of experience. Whether or not it actually fulfills that, that's the sort of fantasy that it puts in my head. And before I end this one, I'm sorry, this video did not turn out probably how you expected it to, but I really wanted to have something up on the channel while I was gone out of town. And I want to be honest with you guys, I'm not feeling the vibes, good vibes with recent videos. I've not been enjoying it as much. It feels less like a creative outlet for me and more like I'm trying to just churn out content to put up on the channel. And that's something I want to fix. I want to get over that. I want to be excited about doing this again. Obviously, I know I'm super lucky to make a living talking about video games on the internet, but it's almost like I've extracted the creativity out of it. Like I've boiled it down to an exact science of record this much, say these things, and just regurgitate the same talking lines over and over. Like, I don't know if you guys experience it watching it, but I experience it when I'm recording. I'm like, oh my God, did I really just say that? Oh my God. You know, we're really not actually engaged in what we're doing here. We're just recording to make a video. And it's gotten so bad for me mentally to the point that maybe I shouldn't be saying that, but I don't care. That's actually how I feel. So I guess the point of what I'm trying to say is I'd love to know what you guys truly think about these videos. Are you enjoying them? Has the shtick worn off? Is this, you know, this type of content I'm making, is it getting old? Or are you still enjoying this? And maybe I just need to take some time off and get my head right and come back and keep making these videos. Because for me, I feel like I've sucked the fun out of my own experience. Like this hobby, this pursuit that I started friggin' 13, going on 14 years ago. Have I sucked the fun out of this for myself? Am I taking this too seriously? Sometimes I don't know. Like, is this even fun for me anymore? Which, God, it's crazy to hear that coming out of my own mouth. But I feel like I owe it to you guys to be honest, because this is a two-way street. And I don't know, I'd just like to be more genuine with you guys. And I don't want to fake excitement, and I don't want to fake laugh, and I don't want to just do these things that don't feel genuine anymore that I've been doing for quite a while, because to be honest, the last 3 years of my channel have been the most successful it's ever been. I mean, it's afforded me so many fantastic things in my life, like being able to buy a house, being able to raise a family, being able to get my first car. I mean, so many crazy things have come because of this YouTube channel. So it's like, that's not lost on me, but at the same time, it feels a little soul crushing to do this creative thing and not feel any joy from it. It's kind of gotten to a really bad point. So I just wanted to be open and honest with you guys, and please let me know what you think in the comment section below about this content, and if you want to see something else, and if you're open to more creative stuff from me, I'd love to know. But with that, thank you guys so much for watching, especially if you're listening till now, and I will talk to you next time.